Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast with your host Kristina Schmidt. So today I have a very exciting segment to do. So this is something that I've been thinking about doing since I started thinking about doing a podcast. So I'm really excited to get started with it, but it's going to be a regular segment. And so we're calling this the Power Squad segment. So the two coaches I'm going to bring on, we meet regularly, we collaborate a lot, and we love to call ourselves the Power Squad for whatever reason. It's just a fun name that we call ourselves. So we're bringing you into one of our conversations together. So without further ado, I'll bring the guests on for today. So welcome, Jenny and Melanie. So happy to have you guys here. So I'll do a quick intro and then I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. So first we have Jenny Barkan. She's with Jenny Barkan Coach and a leadership coach and facilitator. And with us also, we have Melanie Taylor, who is an organizational development consultant and also the author of Thrive, which is a leadership program. All three of us facilitate as well. So welcome, Jenny and Melanie.
Hello.
Very excited to have you here. So I'm just going to have you guys introduce yourselves briefly and give us a little tidbit of what you do and why you do what you do. So Jenny, if you'd like to go first.
That's okay. Yep. With J as the first name I used to in the class going somewhere. So I do what I do, and what I do is a leadership coach, leadership coaching, leadership skills development, and creation of employee experience in organizations. And I do it because we spend so much time at work, and we also bring so much of our work back home in our personal life, that if our work life sucks, kind of the entire life sucks. And being employed by different organizations, I know what's the difference between a great place to work, where you want to go on Monday and you don't want to run away on Friday night, and between the organization that it's every morning it's a dread, right? It's the sickening feeling in your stomach that you don't want to go and see this place. So I want to create as many places that people want to go on a Monday morning. So that's why I do what I do.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. I love that whole thought of if we can't be happy with work and it just wrecks the rest of our lives. And so I totally, why I do what I do as well. So awesome. Melanie, how about you introduce yourself?
Hello, Melanie Taylor. I offer improved performance and well-being for organizations and everyone in them. And the way I do that is help organizations develop, and the people in them develop, the thinking, the habits, and the systems that help people and performance to thrive. And that's what I do. And I love my work and getting out of the bed in the morning to help people think differently about their challenges. It's lots of fun.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to have you guys as part of this conversation today. So our topic for today is what gets in the way of making change. And so this is a hugely broad topic, and there's so many concepts around it and so many reasons really when we really dig into it as to why we can't change or why we struggle with change. But what I'd like to do is have each one of us bring something up and we'll explore it a bit further and hopefully give some insights to the listeners that they can maybe take something and action it. So anybody want to go first?
I can start.
I can if you. Okay, go ahead, Melanie.
I think when I think about what gets in the way of making change, I think how many changes have I tried to make in small things, etc., that are seemingly small? And I always come back to saying you're going to do something and then it not working out and that feeling like the end. And I think that often gets in the way. So for example, if you say, I want to eat healthier and I want to stop eating ice cream, right? And so you get rid of the ice cream from the house, you do all the things, you stopped eating ice cream. And then lo and behold, something happens and you eat ice cream. And often that's the place that we like, it's like, all or nothing, I've failed, I'm done. And so you like the blame, the shame, the guilt, all of those things get in the way. I'm a failure. And so what you end up often doing is going back, like relapsing, going back to before and saying, I guess I just eat ice cream now. Whereas I have learned if we can give ourselves a lot of grace and get rid of that shame and realize we're human and we fail, and this is just part of the process and part of the step, and every time you go back to doing the thing, it's learning. It's so much easier to say, like, okay, I had ice cream, but that doesn't mean I need to eat it every day now. Like, I did it once and that was good. Maybe I'll keep going. And even from that point of view, I've started giving myself more grace from the start. So rather than saying, that's it, I'm going cold turkey on this thing, saying, okay, I'm going to try to minimize or make small changes, etc., which has helped me, I think, get a lot of success in doing those things. And yeah, so again, failure, setting yourself up for success and being kind to yourself and not letting all that shame or guilt get in the way moving forward.
Yes, I resonate with that so much. Honestly, I know when I was a leader, I used to always see myself as like this perfect. This is what I want to be. This is perfect, like feedback giver, coach, leader. And, I didn't take into account where I was coming from. And so the first time I'd have to go and like actually do something different, I'd be like, and then I'd talk myself out of doing it for whatever reason. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I suck at this and I'm just terrible. So like that whole like setting small steps and being realistic with yourself and not seeing a mistake as failure. I think that's so huge.
But when you're on a stage like that, where like a stage, right? When you're a leader in a big leadership role, that's when all of that, like the imposter syndrome starts to come in, right? And then that's even getting more in the way of your change. And you're not creating a space for others to feel like they don't have to be perfect as well when you're putting that on yourself, which then again crushes everybody's ability to actually make changes.
Yeah. And well, with that, the whole crushing everybody else, if you're showing as a leader, if you're showing that example of them, of like basically a mistake is failure, total failure, like that's not setting a very great example for your team either.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Jenny, any thoughts on setting the small, realistic changes?
Yes, and probably because personally, by default, I don't like change at all. If I could all my life do the same things all over again, if I would be giving a choice, I would be still living in the same house, eating the same food, etc. And yet my life is the constant change. I lived in 3 different countries, 3 different professions. So at some point I needed to make a peace that I have to do some changes. So how I do it, and I came up with a very practical exercise for myself. And I'm pretty sure someone else famous and smart came up with the same, they just calling it differently. I'm calling it 10-minute promise.
Oh.
And what I do is when I need to start doing something differently, I'm just saying to myself, I'm promising myself that I would do it for 10 minutes. And if I really struggle, I'll stop. I'm giving myself permission to stop doing it for whatever reason. And what usually happens that if I start doing something for 10 minutes, I know I can do anything basically for 10 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even lift some very heavy right equipment. I can do anything for 10 minutes. It's not that bad. And usually during those 10 minutes, I'm getting the momentum. But it's not that bad, actually. It's not that hard. It's not that different, maybe. Or maybe, yes, it is different, but it's kind of working for me. So these 10 minutes giving me enough momentum to keep going and, keep rolling and, embracing this new change. And if it's not happening, then, okay, so I wasn't ready. I haven't thought about some things right in the process. So I didn't screw up much things because I only was doing this for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make myself like suffer for hours or days, right? just 10 minutes. So I started using this many years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, and it works for me most of the time. I can't say that it works 100%. I don't think anything ever works 100%. But with something that I really need to start doing in a new way, this 10-minute promise kind of works. It makes me probably tricking my brain, right? So it's just 10 minutes. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. Very close. Don't get too, upset that it's something that you don't want to do. Just 10 minutes.
Definitely. That's good.
There's neuroscience behind that, right, Jenny?
Yes, it is. Yes, I'm a huge fan of neuroscience. I'm a neuroscience geek. And our brain usually hates not knowing, right? So our fears, majority of them, not from the change itself, but because it's so much unknown about how we're going to do that, right? How it's going to turn out. So all these fears, but if we're giving ourselves a certainty of time, it's just for 10 minutes. So our brain can live with that. It's a certainty. It's known. And then all our fears, kind of our amygdala, this fight or flight monster, comes down because 10 minutes, it's not that bad, right? And then our thinking brain, when our amygdala shuts, then our thinking brain starts working. And it all seems to be logical and doable, right? And interesting sometimes. And then we can keep doing. And if our amygdala is still unsettled and we're still not really ready, then 10 minutes, that's all.
So you're giving yourself this psychological safety that you need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Change.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I know I've heard this before, but I struggle to remember it in the moment. So what's something that reminds you to say, just try it for 10 minutes? How do you remember to do it?
So you're absolutely right. And someone very smart, and I need to find out who, said that to learn the new things is easy. To remember that that's what it's hard.
Ooh, I love that.
Yeah, someone very smart. I promise I didn't invent that, but I think it's 100% right. And what I have those sticky notes, like, everybody has them. And one of them on my table says 10 minutes. And it's forever here. It's already ripped and some coffee stains on that. So periodically, probably once a year, I change to the new sticker, right? So 10 minutes. And but because I also did it so many times, it's a sort of a habit already to 10 minutes. Okay, now you have cell phones, right? So I put this alarm 10 minutes. And when it goes off, so I can snooze it, right, for next 10 minutes. And the next 10 minutes. Or I can just turn it off and say, no, you know what, I'm good. I'm keep going.
Yeah. So, good. Yeah.
It's been very simple piece of paper or technology, cell phone, right? Whatever is your preference.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So Post-it notes galore all over my house.
Yeah, it still works.
It's I've been trying to work into my things that I'm doing, like create structure. So I've been using the 10-minute thing to do workouts, like rowing workouts. And so I say I'm going to do my 10 minutes and block in my 10 minutes in the morning. So I take that mentality and remember to apply it to blocking in my structure and my habit. So it actually, again, I can get out of bed in the morning to do 10 minutes of rowing. Whereas if you said, you're going to get out of bed and do 30 minutes, I wouldn't do it. I'd just stay in bed. So but I think as you're saying this, I'm also thinking you have to be careful if you're trying to make a change. I'm thinking it can probably be easy to stay the same by only allowing yourself 10 minutes of the thing that you're not wanting to do anymore, right? I'm just thinking, I'll only allow myself 10 minutes on my phone to doom scroll through whatever, right? All of a sudden, then you're like, oh no, 30 minutes or an hour or whatever have passed. So again, paying attention to this whole use your powers for good, not for evil. But again, that's sometimes creating the change will probably sabotage ourselves by allowing ourselves still 10 minutes of that thing that we're trying to change.
So you're saying to cut yourself off of the 10 minutes thing, or you're saying to like allow yourself like the time wasting for 10 minutes?
I'm thinking that, well, it's probably paying attention to it. I'm thinking allowing yourself the time wasting for 10 minutes may be a slippery slope that your brain's like, oh, just 10 minutes, but then you keep going, right? Because sometimes it's like, I'll just do this for 10 minutes, like washing the dishes. I don't want to wash the dishes, but I'll just start and do 10 minutes of dishwashing. And then usually you're like, oh yeah, this isn't so bad. And then you get going, and then all of a sudden you're cleaning the entire kitchen and you're doing all of this kind of stuff, right? Like your brain, once you've just started, your brain keeps going. But the same thing can be true for stuff you don't want to be doing. When you say, oh, I'll just do it for 10 minutes, you can easily do the same slide into doing it on something you actually don't want to be doing. So again, giving yourself the 10 minutes for the habit you want to create, and also paying attention to maybe not doing as much, giving yourself 10 minutes for the thing that you want to get rid of. Maybe.
Yes, that's good. I know I fall prey to that a lot. I'm just a second, I'm just gonna check one thing, and then it's an hour later. I'm like, time warp. What happened to the time?
I can see that happening definitely, because it's the same brain, right? It's the same. The difference would be, I think, as a perspective, because if you promised yourself, I just can do it for 10 minutes and then I stop, something that you don't want to do, right? And then you feeling good about it and you continue, that creates a feeling good, and our brain, our chemicals craving feeling good. If you promise yourself, I only watch like funny cats videos for 10 minutes, and you break in this promise, you start feeling guilty.
Yes.
And our brain hates feeling guilty. It's a negative feeling we trying do not feel, right? So I think still chances, if you promise to yourself, stop doing something after 10 minutes, and this self-guilt, right, will wake up after like your alarm goes off, it might work. But unfortunately, no trick or exercise ever works like, oh, easy peasy. We still need to, bring up discipline and like self.
Well, I think you make a good point, Tanya, about the thinking behind it. Like, I mean, and that's so much of that change. You can't just stay on automatic coasting mode. Like, if you give yourself that 10 minutes, saying, and this is the other piece of it. And I guess, I mean, what comes back to making that change, to me, it's always that thinking behind it, right? And I think that we talk a lot about, and that's what we help a lot of people to do, it's not really helping develop the habit or the change itself. It's talking about and developing the habit around the thinking at first, which often there's no awareness there to begin with, right? So it's being aware of what thinking do you need in order to be successful in this change, which I think is hard to do in a vacuum. And why I think a lot of us struggle is we don't know what we should be thinking differently.
So awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you, Melanie. That got us going on a lot of different topics. So awesome. So Jenny, I know you brought up the 10-minute thing. Do you have another one of what gets in the way of change?
Yes, big one, again, from my own experience and experience of my clients. If we decided to behave differently, and what we try to, in order to accommodate that and behave differently, we need to change our life. I find if we trying to change our life to fit the change, it never works, because life always wins. So I always invite to fit the change within the life you have. And what I'm talking about, for example, it's statistically probably the most desirable New Year's resolution, right? We are end of November, so close to New Year's. It's to get healthy or start eating differently, right? Go to the gym 5 times a week, etc. But all good, right? All good resolutions. But if you have 80 hours workload and 2 kids at home, there's no way you can find 5 times a week for an hour or two to go to the gym. It's not going to happen because you're trying to change entire life around the change.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, if you say, okay, I need more physical activities, and I'm picking up my kids from school or kindergarten, whatever, 3 times a week. So instead of driving there, let's start walking or stop in the playground, and I won't be sitting on the bench checking my phone. I will be actively playing with my kids. Or if it's older kids, let's just grab a football, right, or basketball and just play on this school ground. So then you're fitting your change into your existing life. You still have to pick up your kids from school or kindergarten, right? You're just
Mm-hmm.
adding what you wanted, a physical activity, into existing life routine.
Yes.
So
Oh, I think
I'm
that's
inviting to put the change that fit your life and not fit your life to the change. Because unfortunately, our life and routines and responsibilities to others are always win.
mm-hmm.
Always
You're
win.
right. Well, it's like that whole just trying to change too much too fast. It's like it's gonna be harder to change. And our body's it's gonna go back to what's easy eventually. And so you kind of got this
Exactly.
state here, this middle ground state. And if you try to go whoop, too high up, it'll snap back. But if you
Yeah.
slowly stretch, now you'll get there eventually. It just might take a little longer than you wanted it to, but it's realistic and it'll stick better.
Yeah.
And I think that's part, like, goes back to why what gets in the way is thinking you have to go from here to here, there, wherever, when
Mm-hmm.
really you have to go from here to here, and then here, and then here, and then
Mm-hmm.
here, and then here, and eventually you get there. But if you try to make that jump first, again so often gets in the way of what
Yes,
people need to achieve, and then we just give up.
exactly. Jenny, it's funny you mentioned New Year's resolution. I've been trying to rethink that whole situation, and so many times we try to leap into the goal, right? It's like January 1st, I am going to that whole exercise 5 days a week. But what if we instead said we were going to start the goal on January 1st and we're going to finish it the following January 1st? And so we actually take the entire year to work on it. So I just think through that and I think of like all the mental changes that would happen in terms of just trying to slowly stretch ourselves, like every month progressing or doing some kind of a weekly progression or something along those lines, that like the habit forming that we do. And maybe there's neuroscience behind this too.
Oh, definitely it is.
I know there's neuroscience behind it actually, but the habit forming that we would do would actually be a bigger impact for us than just saying, now I exercise 5 days a week as of today, January 1st. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, your goal, that's awesome. Like, your goal is around development, not around like doing the thing. And so, like, I think in that case you would be much more less likely to give up on whatever statistically date people give up on their New Year's resolutions, right? Because you're building, you're giving yourself that path of success. I think I like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of neuroscience again, there's a huge myth around that 21 days is enough to create a new habit and then be good. It's not true because if it's a habit of, I don't know, putting your cup to the sink with the dirty dishes right away, not leaving it, yeah, maybe it takes 21 days. But more complicated, complex habits like going to gym, you need to live, you need to find time, you need to pack up your bag, you need to go. It's a lot of actions. It takes sometimes 3 to 6 months to stick with it regularly, just to create this a sense of habit. It's not the habit yet even.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is that that's a great idea. So the goal, it's not start going to the gym. The goal is to go to the gym the whole year and check it. But again, I think that to create this habit, we need to make it easy on us, right? We have so many distractions and responsibilities, etc. So if, for example, you want to go to the gym 5 times a week, right? Even if you work 60, 70 hours a week and the family, etc., then probably the easiest way to is to find a gym that is on your way from work to home. So you
Hmm.
can't go first home and then, okay, no chance that you're leaving. But if you drive through that, maybe, or maybe there's even sometimes there's in the building, right? The gym, like the company allows, or any other company has it, etc. So to make it so easy, waved in into your existing life that you already have, then that you
Hmm.
just have less and less chances to, go around it. So if there's no way to avoid like this gym name, like huge letters lighting up when you're driving home. Okay, yeah, I'm going there.
Yeah.
And
So,
I think it speaks to, again, what you were saying about like fitting it into your life, etc. And Kristina, what you're saying about give it the time to build up to that. And I've told you this before. I've had these conversations with like chiropractors and physiotherapists who you go to get healed, whatever, and they're like, okay, you need to start doing these 12 activities 3 times a day, in order, and you're like, that's not going to fit into my life. What if I did one of them? And they're no, 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 you need to do all of them. And then inevitably, I'm like, I can't fit this in, so I do none. Whereas I've started creating my own plan in ways and say, you know what, my goal is to be doing the full set of exercises at this point, and I know to do that, I need to work my way into it. So I say in the next day I want to get one of them done, and then over the next period of time I want to get 2 of them done, and then I'm like, okay, that wasn't so bad, I can keep doing that, and then building it up. And same with going to the gym, right? To say I'm going to go once within the next week, and then you do it, and your brain, like, you're like, that was awesome, I did it, hooray. And that creates the motivation to now keep going. But that is, you're giving yourself again that safety net, because if you couldn't go Wednesday, it's not like, meh, I couldn't go, that's it, I'm done. You go, I only had to go once this week, I'll go Thursday, right? I can make that work. And then you feel good, and you then keep doing it. So building that up, which again speaks to
Hmm.
that annual resolution and building towards it, and saying in 6 months I want to be going to the gym 5 days a week, and this week it's once, next week it's once, oops, I messed up, I didn't go at all this week, but that's okay, I'll go once next week, the week after. So I think it all comes together to create success. Takes a lot of pressure off.
Yeah. Awesome. I know I found that in my life, just with working out. Like I used to always try to run, and I was able to do it for a while, but I would run at 5 in the morning and I was meeting people, and it was working. But then like things changed, and I started not getting up and not doing anything. And so I had to like revamp myself. And so like I actually just started getting up earlier. Like rather, like I wasn't even working out. I just had to practice waking up earlier first. And then I decided like running outside actually wasn't, it was just too much of a barrier. So I switched to like YouTube videos. And it actually did work. And so like I was very consistent most of this year. I've had some things change. And so not, I have to reboot my mind again and kind of rethink. I'm going to do the 10-minute thing, I think, and say, I'm just going to do 10 minutes of the video, but struggling to get myself rolling at 5 right now. But so I'm doing the balance of kicking myself in the pants and giving myself grace. So somewhere in the middle, right?
When it again back to the thinking and the stories you're telling yourself, right? And realizing that you can change that narrative and step backwards and say like, okay, I can't get up and run, but I can just get up. That's going to be the rightest thing to do now. And then I will add running to it. So rather than just giving up, you told yourself a different story that helped get you to the story that you want to get to, which is, success.
Yeah, and maybe ask yourself, is it that you're looking for just run itself? Like what is important to run or to get physically active? And maybe for now to, if if the goal is to run, yes, for many people running it's like the meditation. So that's what they need. Yeah, so you need to give yourself 10 minutes of running, right? At least to start trying. But if behind that run is just being physically active, then maybe something else. If you can't go outside, like dancing for 10 minutes when you're cooking breakfast, I don't know, it's whatever fits in our daily schedule, right? So to
Mhm.
really understand what is it that going to the gym rarely is what we really want, right? We want to get healthier, or we
Mhm.
want to like tone or lose weight, whatever it is. So there
Yeah.
might be an alternatives that do fit in your life
Mhm.
and will
No, and I
giving
think
you the same result, but like not the way you thought it would be just a gym, but probably there's some other ways to get to the same results. You just need to understand what is it that you're really trying to achieve.
yes, like really understanding the intent behind setting the goal.
Yes,
Like what are you trying to do here? So that's great too.
exactly.
Oh, good thinking. All right, so I'll bring mine in now, just because I don't know how long we've been talking for, but I think it's been a while. Um, so my thought of what gets in the way is sometimes pride. And so the reason I've been thinking through this a lot, I'm thinking a lot around actually the opposite of it is humility. And so this whole topic could actually be probably a podcast in itself, but the whole like sometimes we don't ask for help because we're too prideful, and sometimes we couldn't, like, I remember thinking I couldn't possibly ask for help in doing this sort of thing because I'm supposed to be an expert in it. And so therefore, how could I need help? And if I need help, it's a failure. And so these are mind constraints and things that are blocking us. But like that whole concept of just something, like we're blocking ourselves from getting help, or we're blocking ourselves from seeing that we need a change even. And so I don't know, I have a long time said that you can't learn unless you have some humility, because you have to be able to say, well, maybe this isn't the best it could be, or maybe I'm not functioning at my highest levels, or something along those lines. But just being able to take a step back and admit that something's not working, and to be able to do something with that. So, any thoughts around pride?
Yeah, it makes sense. Do you have an example that you like of where you felt it was getting in the way and then you asked for help?
So specifically for me, like when I was a plant manager, like I'd come into the role of being like this lean manufacturing expert. And and everyone's like, you can do it, you do it. But I was in, the role of plant manager, not of the implementer. There's a whole myriad of things why I don't think I was leading well as well. But within it, I was afraid to ask for help. And so by not asking for help, and by not actually asking for help in leading or coaching, like I wasn't actually able to make any changes, whether it be in myself or my team or my whole plant, that I wanted to do. And so, but even like taking it more simply now, like sometimes I even say to myself, I'm a leadership coach. I know this stuff. But the reality is, I still need a coach. I still need a third party to bounce these things off of, and to really just help me break it down sometimes, to break down the thoughts. Like I love talking to you guys because sometimes I just do that with you. So I appreciate that. But I think sometimes like the looking at ourselves as an expert, or as we must be perfect. It's kind of the perfectionism in a way that we struggle to make the changes. And maybe it comes back to actually a little bit of what you were saying, Melanie, that the mindset, right? So if we fail once, we must be a failure, and so rather than saying, okay, I didn't do it perfectly this time, I just haven't learned it yet, or I haven't developed that habit yet. And so that sort of a difference in the mindset. So any thoughts,
Yeah.
perspectives on that?
I am reflecting that I also appreciate having you to talk to, because you provide a safe place to be able to ask for help, and talk about things and not feel there has to be perfection, right? And so
Mhm.
I we've established a lot of that and just like talk through things. And that, again, sometimes it's that talking it through, that shift and ideas that you share that helps. But it's, if I show up to the conversation with too much pride and want to demonstrate to you that I am perfect and capable, etc., I get stuck, and I would get stuck, right? And so part of it is, again, being able to lower that pride and be more vulnerable, and having that space to be able to do that. It's kind of like a two-part piece, right? Sometimes the block is in you, and sometimes the block is in the environment. But having that safe group to be able to talk things through, etc. And even if it's not directly asking for help, sometimes I ask for help without saying I need help. I'm just talking things through, and then come back and go, wow, that was very helpful, right? And and able to be vulnerable and get deep into it for sure helps with a lot of that. So I think you're absolutely right that our pride to even show up to the conversation, like, prevents you from showing up to the conversation, or prevents you from all the things that could actually help you to make a really impactful change. We are our own worst enemies. And I always say, all of my successes come when I take my own advice. I usually just have to remind myself to do that.
Exactly. 100% agree.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Jenny. Were you going to say something?
I think I often ask my clients, like, what is the worst thing the leader can say out loud? And what I often hear is to say, I don't know, to admit that I don't know. And even myself, as you mentioned, right, as a consultant in something, my expectation of myself to know everything. And no one on that planet never did, never is, and never will know everything. And yet, for whatever reason, we expecting it from ourselves. What I think we need to understand that we need to give more credit to people around us, because usually behind the thinking, I don't know, I can't say that out loud, because I believe that other people I lead or people I consult for, they will think less of me. When people that I am dealing with, they understand perfectly clear that no one knows everything, not them and not I am. And if I would start pretending that I know everything, I don't ask any questions, I think then they will think less of me, because I'm pretending and they would know I'm pretending. But if I honestly say, you know what, in this situation, I have no idea. I have questions for you, or I need to start learning something, right? So people might think of me, oh, she was brave enough to say, or she's more like me because she doesn't know also some things and like I am. And this trust and mutual trust begins, and relationship begins to build in a whole new level. So to just, I would say, to trust other people that they won't think less of us if we say, I don't know. And to let this absolutely ridiculous expectation that if you say that you're specialist in something, you know everything. No, you just know more than someone else who is not a specialist. This is all it is. And more sometimes enough to teach something, right? But it doesn't mean that you know all of it.
And it doesn't mean you're not a human being still.
And if you're a specialist and you know a lot, it also probably means you are really interested in it. And so when the question arises, you're the right person to dig in and try to answer that question. Whereas somebody who's not a specialist would not, like, they don't care as much, or they're not as interested, or they don't know how to put the pieces together. So yeah, just the specialist doesn't have to mean X. It doesn't have to mean knows it all. It's sometimes the one who's the most interested in it, or the one who can help connect those dots.
Awesome.
I've learned that saying I don't know is a gift to the people that I'm talking with, because it allows them to say they don't know as well.
Mhm.
And I had great conversations with people just that I realize now come from me first saying like, oh, I have no idea. And then people are like, oh, it's okay if you, right? Like you don't know in this space. And so then it starts brainstorming and curiosity as opposed to everyone pretending that they know absolutely everything. So yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap up the episode here. Thank you, Jenny and Melanie, for joining us for the first segment of the Power Squad segment. So, first episode of the Power Squad segment. So, if people wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way, Melanie?
Oh, you can go to my website, MelanieTaylorConsulting.com.
All right. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Jenny?
Or website, jennybarkan.com, or the LinkedIn. I checked, I'm the only Jenny Barkan, so
Awesome.
sometimes it's a lot of names, but that's one sort of happened, only me.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thank you, listeners, for listening to our conversation. We hope you gleaned something. We will put together all of these notes with some actionable things that you can do for each of these barriers to get in the way of change and get that out for you. I'll put that in the link of the show notes. And so you can have something to take away and maybe a quick reminder to help you move forward as you go. And just a reminder, this is the Business Building Blocks podcast. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at KristinaSchmidt.ca and also on LinkedIn as well. And I think there's more than one Kristina Schmidt. So sorry about that. But thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time on the Business Building Blocks podcast.